Good morning.
Guys, today on the episode of Joncast, we have Rodger, guys, the greatest. He's been known for so many different things in history, from working with Nixon, from basically making Trump who he is today, guys. Rodger himself is one of the most well-known people in the Republican history, I would say myself. Do you have any words you want to speak on that real quick?
Well, I've worked for 13 national Republican presidential candidates. I have worked on 700 individual political campaigns for public office. I'm a political animal. It runs in my blood. The truth is, I don't know how to do anything else. So when I'm not engaging in politics, I'm talking about it or writing it about it, which is a lot more fun if you want to know the truth. It's I've written a book on this. It's called Stone's Rules. It's kind of like Machiavelli's The Prince or Sun Tzu's The Art of War. My friend Tucker Carlson wrote the introduction. I actually decided at one point to sit down and try to write everything I had learned, every maxim, every philosophy, every key thing I had learned about life. And it doesn't matter whether you're in entertainment or tech or retail or fashion or agriculture for that matter. There's something in that book for everyone. So I'm very proud of it.
No. I was looking a little bit about that book. I was reading up on it on Amazon. I'm like, that book is actually really good. I was surprised. So I didn't get the book, but I read a couple of reviews about it. And a lot of people are they like it a lot. You got a lot of 5 stars ratings.
Well, here's a shameless plug. If you want to get a signed copy of it for Christmas, go to stonesrulesbook.com. Stonesrulesbook.com. No apostrophe. Stonesrulesbook.com. If you do it right away, we can get it signed, even personalized, and out the door for Christmas.
Okay, that's good to know. You guys hear that, viewers? Go get his books in. Definitely get it for grandkids. What do you think about Trump's chances for 2024?
I think if we have a free, fair, honest, and transparent election, there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind that Donald Trump will be the next president. The Republican nomination process is essentially over. The 2 candidates running in second and third, and we could argue about who's really second and who's really third, are both at least 40 points, in many cases as many as 50 points behind Trump. Trump has really transformed the Republican Party from being a party of rich country club swells and the rich guys on Wall Street to being a party of the middle class, party of working people, and most importantly, the party of America first. So I think in the country, there's a great regret. Many people regret voting for Joe Biden because they thought he was going to restore civility to our politics or return us to some golden age of bipartisanship in which Republicans and Democrats work together to the betterment of the people. And of course, that hasn't happened. What we have is record inflation. What we have is skyrocketing gasoline prices. What we have is a 76% increase in the cost of basic groceries. What we have is a steep decline in wages, which went up every year Donald Trump was president. We continue, this is a shock to me, but we continue to ship billions of dollars to Ukraine when we don't seem to be willing to spend the money to seal our own border, which in turn, as you know, has caused essentially a fentanyl crisis, a crime epidemic in the United States. So I think people now look back at the Trump years, despite the fact that they may not have liked his bluntness or what some say was his crude nature on social media, with great fondness. We had peace and prosperity under Donald Trump. And I think people would like to return to that level of stability. I mean, we're on the verge, we're on the edge of World War III here. I'm not I'm not exaggerating in any way.
No, you're not. It's true.
Now Zelensky's not asking anymore. Now he's threatening us, essentially saying, which is ridiculous, if you don't send me billions more, American troops, American men and women in uniform will have to fight the Russians in Germany and Poland and so on. There's no evidence that Vladimir Putin wants to take over all of Europe. All Vladimir Putin wants is for Ukraine not to put NATO-based missiles pointed at Russia on the ground in their country, which we agreed to in 1994 in the Budapest Memorandum that was signed by President George Bush and I believe it was the Soviet leader at the time. So it is, we're in violation of a treaty that we agreed to. And that's what this war is really, really about.
No, yeah, most definitely. There's a couple of things I want to mention. You talked about, the election of 2020. Basically, this people got stolen. And my personal experience with that, I know I got my ballot in the mail. And 3 months later, I got a letter from the government saying I got unregistered to vote because my signature was changed. So essentially, someone stole my ballot, and they voted for me, and then they unregistered me. And that was in the state of Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon is, of course, you have a very high incidence of voter fraud there. The point, of course, is that if Argentina can operate entirely on paper ballots and count them all on the night of the election, 28 million of them. If France can rely entirely on paper ballots and count all of them on the night of the election, 38 million of them, then surely we can do that. Mail-in balloting, which was only legalized because of the COVID-19 pandemic, is an open invitation for voter fraud. Former Attorney General Bill Barr said so on Fox before he changed his mind and tried to say there was no evidence of fraud in the last election, when in fact there's overwhelming evidence of anomalies, irregularities, and outright fraud in the last election. Yeah. So the only way we're going to fix this, in my opinion, is to go back to paper ballots, no machines, because machines can be hooked to a central server and manipulated. Absentee ballots for those who are invalids, who are truly incapacitated, physically incapacitated, cannot physically get to the polls. But we have to do away with mail-in ballots because they're an open invitation for fraud. When I was in Las Vegas before the last presidential election, a man came up to me and he had 5 ballots in his hand. One of them was addressed to him. The other 4 were addressed to other people, but at his address, 4 different people. And I said, "What's this?" He said, "Well, I did some research. Each one of these people rented my apartment before I did. One of them rented my apartment 15 years ago, but they're all still on the voter rolls. And if I were dishonest, I could have cast 5 votes in the election." I said, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "I'm not going to use any of these. I'm going to show up and vote in person because I'm not sure, even if I marked my ballot and mailed it in for Donald Trump, how do I know that they will really count it?" Yeah. How indeed. So in Nevada, for example, every voter is mailed an absentee ballot, whether they request one or not. And they're not return address requested. So in other words, if it is undeliverable, it doesn't come back to the Board of Elections. And therefore, whoever receives it at a given address could cast that ballot. It sounds like that is what happened to you.
Oh, most definitely, without a doubt. I was going to also ask you. So you've known Trump for a long time, yeah.
I've known him for 45 years. Yeah. He's really the same person that you see on television. There really is only one Donald Trump. I work for a lot of politicians. First of all, I don't consider Trump a politician. I consider him a political leader but I will never consider him a politician. And they have two personas. They have their public persona and their private persona. Bill Clinton was like this. He was charming in public, but he was a mean-spirited SOB with a hair trigger temper in his, everyday comportment. But the American people didn't see that. So they only saw the charming side of him. And believe me, he could be very charming. It's not like that with Donald Trump. He's funny. He can be self-deprecating. Yes, he's extremely self-confident, extraordinarily self-confident.
Should be.
Well, if you built $1 billion business, if you came out of nowhere to win the presidency over 16 other far more experienced and in some cases better funded candidates, if you built the most robust economy, the most productive economy in U.S. history, if you brought hundreds of thousands of let me say that correctly. If you brought thousands of American troops home from foreign wars without the countries you were bringing them home from collapsing into the hands of the enemy, if you rebuilt the military strength of America as he did, if you appointed scores of conservative judges to the judiciary as he did, he has a lot to be proud of. I think these days that he's a little angry. He's not unhinged or any of the stuff you read at the Daily Beast or other, fake news.
They're not even news anymore. You put that on, it's all just fake.
It's all just hate, is what it is. It's hate, and he's a little angry, and I think he should be, because no previous American president has been treated this way. What exactly is his crime again? What did he steal? He didn't steal anything.
Yeah.
He questioned the outcome of the election.
Yeah.
They have to prove, in order to convict him in either D.C. Or Georgia, they have to prove his state of mind. It's called mens rea, as the Latin term in the law. I'm not a lawyer, but read a lot about it. I know him. I don't think he ever thought, no matter who told him otherwise, I don't think he ever thought that he lost the 2020 election. I don't think he ever, and therefore he could not have conspired with others to illicitly remain in power, because then and now he absolutely believes that the election was stolen and rigged against him. And of course, there's enormous evidence to support that conclusion. The question will be, if the Supreme Court now lets the charges against Trump go forward, which is up in the air because Trump has argued that he has, as president at the time, he has immunity from prosecution. The judge in D.C. at the trial court level rejected that argument, but Trump announced that he would appeal it to the Circuit Court of Appeals in D.C., where he would probably lose again, and then presumably the question would go to the Supreme Court. Jack Smith, who is the special counsel, has basically leapfrogged the Court of Appeals and asked the Supreme Court to rule on the question immediately. That's because the timing of the charges against Trump are politically motivated. They have no interest in justice here. This has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with breaking the law. It has to do with interrupting and destroying Donald Trump's campaign for election to the White House. They want him stuck in a courtroom, just before the Super Tuesday primary, in which the largest block of delegates will be selected for the Republican nomination. They want him locked in a courtroom when he should be out campaigning against Joe Biden or whichever Democrat they end up propping up to oppose Donald Trump. This is really about election interference. I must tell you, as someone who studied the polls for 40 plus years and understands polling and how to look at the methodology of a poll and the order of the questions and the wording of the questions and the size and proper way of drawing the sample, I can tell you this is backfiring spectacularly. Trump continues to lengthen his lead against all the other Republican contenders, and he continues to hold a significant lead over Joe Biden. All of this, despite the entire daily onslaught of attacks against him by CNN and MSNBC and the three network television outlets, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the usual suspects. This is one of the things that has changed so much in my 45 years in the public arena. The media always leaned left. The New York Times, for example, the so-called newspaper of record, they always leaned left, but they were not the propaganda organs they are today. Today, virtually nothing reported by the New York Times or the Washington Post is actually true or accurate. That was not always the case. You always had to take what they reported with a grain of salt. But today, they just blatantly, openly lie, and they never go back and correct their lies, or I should say, rarely.
So I was also wondering, what type of advice would you give me if I want to get into politics?
Well, we got to get you a better shirt right off the bat. I mean,
hey, this one says Macedonian, and it's like Trump, white teal.
I get it. It was a joke, but look, again, go to my rule book. Look good, feel good. If you're really interested in politics and you're a young person, the first thing to do, I think, is to volunteer for a campaign. Could be a campaign for Congress, could be a campaign for the state legislature, could be a campaign for the U.S. Senate, could be a campaign for president, but you get your feet wet volunteering. I was a volunteer in Richard Nixon's 1968 campaign, ultimately was appointed the head of Youth for Nixon in my home state of Connecticut. It was there that I met former Governor John Davis Lodge, who was a very close friend of former Vice President then Nixon's. Lodge introduced me to Nixon. It's how I got my job with Nixon. I was the youngest member of his reelection campaign in 1972 on the senior staff. Went to the Nixon White House working in the press shop for Pat Buchanan. It was my relationship with Richard Nixon. Nixon introduced me to Ronald Reagan. They both came from Southern California and the same essential political milieu. It was while I was forming a finance committee for Governor Reagan in New York that I met Donald Trump. And when I met Donald Trump, because he was recommended to me as someone who might be interested in the joining the Reagan Finance Committee, I immediately saw that he himself had the size, I don't mean physical size, but I mean the stature, the presence, the stamina, the courage, the clarity of thought, the independence, and the likability, it's a key factor, to be not only a great presidential candidate, but also be a great president. So you can't expect to walk into politics with no experience. You get experience by beginning as a volunteer. Yeah. I think that Turning Point USA is a great organization to affiliate with. I'm going to be speaking to their conference in Phoenix this Sunday. I think that that's a great training ground. Also urge people, if you're a Republican, and I assume those watching this mostly are, join the college Republicans on your campus. Join the young Republicans if you're just out of college. I'm a former Young Republican national chairman, and much of what I know about practical politics, I learned in the Young Republicans. The rules that govern the election of a Young Republican national chairman are identical to the rules that they use to nominate a candidate for president. So if you know how to elect a YR national chairman, well, then you know how to elect a president of the United States.
Okay. No, that's amazing advice. What's your opinion on Elon Musk? Do you think he's actually trying to make Twitter more of a free speech area, especially how he brought Alex Jones back on just like a week or two ago? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I
Yeah,
think that
me too.
that purchasing Twitter, now known as X, and then immediately having independent journalists come in to look at and report on all of the internal records that absolutely show that actors within the federal government, in the Department of Homeland Security, and in the FBI, were working hand in glove with Twitter executives to censor people like me.
Yeah.
Let's just take me as an example. I was banned in 2017. No one actually told me what I was banned for, what specific tweet. There's a lot of speculation about that, but I never even got a formal notice from them telling me I was banned. I did get a notice saying I had a 24-hour suspension. I expected at the end of 24 hours to be reinstated. At the end of 24 hours, well, my profile just disappeared. Now, I've also been banned for life on Facebook. I've also been banned for life on Instagram. I've also been banned for life on YouTube. Don't ask me why. They never told me why. So, but here's the weird part. You can go to Facebook right now and there's a person posing as me. They take everything I post on X, formerly Twitter, and they quickly cross-post it to Facebook so it looks like it's me. There's a person on YouTube. They do the exact same thing. They use the same graphics I use on my profile on X, formerly known as Twitter. And as soon as I post anything, they post it there in terms of videos. And I do a daily show, so I have a daily video, and boom, it's up on YouTube. And this account on YouTube is verified. So it's official Rodger Stone. Folks, it's not me.
It's verified.
It's verified. It's been there since 2017. And here's the tip-off. They used to run in 2017, they put up a bunch of Russian language videos. So this is somehow misrepresenting me. It's not me. The profile of Rodger Stone on Facebook is not me. The profile on YouTube is not me.
Why would they make a fake account?
There's even a fake Rodger Stone on X on Twitter. That's also not me. So if you actually go on and do a Twitter search just under Rodger Stone, whoever this is pops up before I do. In fact, I don't pop up at all. I'm Rodger J. Stone Jr. on Twitter, now known as X. Rodger J. Stone Jr. This person is just up as Rodger Stone. He comes up in a search. I don't come up at all. Yes, I've complained about it. It's identity theft. The person on Facebook is really dangerous. In other words, they're having direct message communications with people, soliciting their bank information, offering people jobs, all kinds of illicit activities. So, folks, if you see Rodger Stone on Facebook, that's not me. If you see Rodger Stone on Instagram, that's not me. If you see Rodger Stone on Twitter, make sure you've got the real Rodger Stone. That's Rodger J. Stone Jr., Rodger J. Stone Jr. The rest of them, they're fugazis.
That's good to know. So I'm a pretty big fan of Alex Jones and Andrew Tate. Do you know Alex Jones for almost as long as you know Trump? I feel like.
Well, not quite. I met Alex Jones, what would now be, I guess I met him on the 50th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. So I met him 10 years ago in Dallas, but only in passing. And then in 2016, we reconnected. He was thinking about supporting Ted Cruz for president. I talked him out of that because Ted Cruz is a stone cold loser, and his breath smells like George W. Bush's jock. And Jones, who prior to that was really non-political, who was more interested in kind of conspiracy theories. I don't say that as a negative, because virtually everything, not everything, but a lot of what he has said turns out to be true. Now, Alex Jones is my friend, and he's a good friend, and I support his right to free speech. Doesn't mean I agree with everything he's ever said on every subject, nor does it mean that he agrees with everything that I've said on every subject. But I do feel strongly that he should never have been essentially erased, canceled. So he's back, but I'm not fully back. I'm only back on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm also on Truth Social, but that's kind of weird too, because I'm on Truth Social as Real Rodger Stone. I'd like to have the same handle that I have on X, which would be Rodger J. Stone Jr., but some squatter on X, on Truth Social, has that, and therefore I'm forced to be Real Rodger Stone. But folks can follow me in both places, and that's where you find me. I also have a website, stonezone.com. So if you want to get a copy of my book on the Kennedy assassination, or you want to get a copy of my book, Stone's Rules, with an introduction by Tucker Carlson, or you want to get your very own Rodger Stone Did Nothing Wrong t-shirt, or your signed Rodger Stone, that's the place you can go do that.
No, that's awesome. I'm trying to eventually meet up with Alex Jones. I want him on my podcast at one point. But beyond that, though, so tell us more about the JFK book, because you did a lot of research into that.
Yeah, I basically realized that the Warren Commission conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone nut, a Russian communist who killed Kennedy, acting alone, shooting 3 bullets, all from behind, all of them from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, is entirely false. First of all, when they test Oswald with a paraffin test, he has no powder burns, no nitrates on his chest or his arms, which if he had fired a leaky Carcano World War II vintage Italian carbine that day, he would have been covered with nitrate. There is none. I point out that 6 individual witnesses see a man in the window of the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building who meets the description not of 24-year-old, 155-pound Lee Harvey Oswald, but the description of a man named Malcolm Mac Wallace. Wallace, in fact, leaves his fingerprints on the cardboard boxes that surround the crow's nest from which Oswald allegedly shot. And we know that because Malcolm Mac Wallace was convicted of first-degree murder in Texas in 1951. He's also a crack shot. He has a much higher rating as a sharpshooter in the Marine Corps than Oswald. So you have eyewitness evidence, at least 6 people who see this man in the window. You have his fingerprints on the cardboard boxes. And then a man named Loy Factor, who's a Native American, comes forward and says that he was in the room that on the 6th floor, that he was hired by Wallace as a backup shooter. He's an expert shot. And it's interesting because 5 of the 6 witnesses, both on the ground and across the street in the jail, who identify a man heavy set, middle-aged, balding. Every one of them says he's wearing glasses. All 5 of the 6 say that there's a second man who's dark complected, either Native American or perhaps Mexican or Hispanic. That's Loy Factor. And Factor describes, because the room was in construction, the floor was in construction, he describes a flat saw that is just to the right of the window from which Oswald allegedly shot. So who is Malcolm Wallace? Well, he is a U.S. Agriculture Department employee who got a job from Lyndon Johnson. He was charged with murder in 1951. because he shot a man named John Douglas Kinzer, who was involved in a love triangle with Lyndon Johnson's sister. And Kinzer was trying to blackmail Johnson with information he had learned from Johnson's sister. So there's a direct connection between the man who shot from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building and LBJ. That's not the only connection. There are many, many others, far too many for us to go into here. But the point of this is there was a conspiracy. The Central Intelligence Agency was involved. The FBI was involved. The Secret Service was involved. Big Texas Oil was involved. But Lyndon Johnson is the man who had the most acute motive. He was under investigation in 2 major scandals of the time. The Bobby Baker scandal. Baker was the Secretary of the Senate and essentially Johnson's bag man, the man you passed bribes through. And the Billy Sol Estes scandal. Billy Sol Estes was a flamboyant Texas wheeler dealer who got these massive federal agricultural contracts and was kicking back to Johnson. So Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, President John Kennedy's closest political advisor, had begun telling people that Johnson would not only be dropped from the 1964 ticket, but that he would be charged and sent to prison for corruption. This is why Johnson persuaded Kennedy to go to Texas. It's why Johnson insisted on the route through downtown Dallas to get to the airport. It made no sense to get from the airport to the merchandise mart where Kennedy was to speak. There was no reason to go through downtown Dallas. Could have gone all the way on the freeway. It is Johnson, through his right-hand man, Governor John Connally, who insists on the deadly route through Dealey Plaza, where the presidential limousine, breaking Secret Service protocol and rules, has to come to a full stop at a stop sign and take a hard right turn. Of course, it was at that moment that Kennedy was shot from both the front and the back. Just in recent weeks, 88-year-old Paul Landis, a retired Secret Service agent, has come forward to say that that he found a bullet in the back of the limousine. He placed that pristine bullet on Kennedy's stretcher in Parkland Hospital. That means the entire single bullet theory, only 3 bullets. That bullet would later be found on the stretcher of John Connally, who was also hit that day, although not by the same bullet as Kennedy, as the Warren Commission claims. But more importantly, in a recent documentary actually put out by Paramount, the doctors who attended JFK at Parkland Memorial Hospital say that they saw wounds in Kennedy consistent with his being shot from both the front and the back. Okay. That the wound in his throat was an entry wound, not an exit wound from the back. That there was a blowout wound at the rear of his head the size of a grapefruit. That's because he was shot from the front. So I think that there's as many as 4 shooters, one on the grassy knoll behind the fence. Multiple eyewitnesses see that man, see a puff of smoke. There's one eyewitness from the railroad tower sees him drive up in a green Plymouth station wagon, pull a rifle out of a rifle bag, get off the fateful shot, return the rifle to the bag and drive away. There's probably also a shooter in the sewer grate. Johnny Roselli, the famous gangster, claims it was him. May have been. There's also, I think, a shooter in the Dow Tex building, which is across from the Texas School Book Depository building. Bottom line, Lee Harvey Oswald was in the lunchroom eating his lunch when John Kennedy was shot. It would be physically impossible for him to get off 3 shots, hide the rifle, and run down 2 flights of stairs because the electricity in the building was strangely turned off without making noise. Now, a witness, Victoria Adams, told the Warren Commission she was on the staircase between the 6th and 4th floor, and she didn't see or hear Oswald at the exact time he would have had to be running down the stairs. It was a creaky wooden staircase.
That makes sense, though. All that
Oswald,
makes sense.
Oswald, what does he say when they bring him out in public? He says, I'm a patsy. I didn't shoot anyone. There you have it.
Yeah. Last two questions for you. What are your thoughts on Andrew Tate when he got arrested?
I'm a big fan of Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan. I think they're great guys. I think that they have a strong philosophy of masculinity and leadership and self-reliance and discipline. And I think that makes them a danger to the matrix. I don't think that Andrew Tate or his brother engaged in any of the illegal activities that they've been accused of. I know how that is because it happened to me. So I'm a strong supporter of the Tates, particularly Andrew Tate.
Awesome. Yeah, no, same here for the Tristan Tate, Andrew Tate, and Roy, the friend. Last question for you. Tell me about your faith, and are you a follower of Jesus Christ?
I renewed my faith. So I was baptized as a Catholic, but I admit to you that I had fallen away. And back in my Washington days, I was a wild man. I mean, I partied hard. You name it, I did it. And I wandered very far from the church and from God. And then when I was charged and facing 7 to 9 years in prison, despite the fact that I had done nothing whatsoever wrong, there was no Russian collusion, there was no WikiLeaks collaboration. The government never proved either one in their case against me. So they convicted me on some weird technicality where they said I lied to Congress, yet any misstatement I made to Congress was immaterial. It didn't hide any underlying crime because there was no crime to hide. So it was at that time, based on the strong recommendation of Reverend Franklin Graham, that I renewed my faith. I put my faith in the hands of Jesus Christ. I started saying the rosary, although I was baptized as a Catholic. Today I go to Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church in South Florida, which was founded by Dr. D. James Kennedy, one of the greatest evangelicals in the country. My church was dedicated by Billy Graham. With Jesus Christ, my friends, all things are possible. All things.
No, I agree. Well, Rodger, I would love to have you on again sometime. I'd love to meet you in person as well. Do you have any closing statements you want to tell the audience real quick?
Yes, never quit fighting. Never, never, never quit. We are on the verge of saving Western civilization and making America great again. All you have to do is have faith in the Lord, because faith replaces fear. God bless you and Godspeed.
Yeah, thank you.